The Home Office has released its latest immigration figures showing that irregular arrivals were down over the last year period. Almost 39,000 people arrived to the UK irregularly in the year up to June. That's a drop, though, of 26%. Small boat arrivals were down 29% on the same period the year before and made up 81% of those irregular arrivals. Almost every person who arrived this way claimed asylum, but 96% of these applications were still undecided by the end of June. The Schools Minister, Catherine McKinnell, said this drop in irregular arrivals doesn't mean the previous government's plan was working.
Their plans were not working. The Rwanda plan was a gimmick, and we've already seen since Labour took office 9 flights of people already being returned because they have been processed. And that is the best way to manage our immigration challenges, is to make sure that we're actually processing people when they arrive here, that those who are entitled to stay can stay, those who aren't are returned. The government absolutely left the chaos to deal with, and we're picking up the pieces and we're repairing the mess.
Our political correspondent, Mari Aurora, has been crunching the numbers for us. Mari, what else have we learnt this morning?
Yes, morning, Gareth. So this new Home Office data really starts to paint a picture of if and what policies from the previous government were potentially working. So I know you've read through some of the headline figures there, but what's really interesting is actually when you look at the kind of overall picture. So small boats crossings down 29%. That's a pretty big headline, but also many would argue actually that the record levels from before mean that that's still going to be quite a high number, for instance. But also, for instance, we've got study visas also down 13%. We've got work visas down 11%, and also quite importantly we've got the dependents of people who came over on study visas also down actually 81% for the first 6 months of this year. And therefore, as I predicted before, you're going to have Conservative voices saying, well, this is thanks to our policies and this is because of us. So let me read you a tweet from James Cleverly, the former Home Secretary, of course, under the Conservative government before. He said, "When I said I was going to cut immigration, I meant it. Visas down, small boats arrivals down, cut the backlog, cut the asylum grant rate. It's not about words, it's about delivery." And now, in that clip from the government minister, Catherine McKinnell, she was trying to, justify the fact that actually, no, this is not the Conservative plan that was working, and trying to deny those claims that the Tories are going to try and take credit for some of these figures. But it's quite difficult because if you just look at the cold hard facts and if you just look at the numbers, these are figures from June, the end of June 2023 until the end of June 2024. So a 12-month period in which almost completely entirely actually was under the Conservative government. And so those figures going down could be argued that actually maybe it was working. We know that they put in certain policies, especially around, like I said, things like student visas and the dependence of student visas. But also, interestingly, there's some figures around the enforcement of returns. So 48% increase in that. Now, that's quite a lot of kind of driven by 87% of those, actually, in fact, was about Albanian enforced returns because of, again, the previous government having a deal with Albania. But nonetheless, some of these numbers seem to suggest that actually maybe it was actually having some level of an effect. And to an extent, you could argue that Rishi Sunak might think to himself, maybe I should have gone in the autumn and not called a July election. Then he would have had a Bank of England interest rate. He would have had small boat crosses reducing, as well as also some other things that he could have potentially pointed to, for instance, economic growth as well. So I think Rishi Sunak might be sitting this morning thinking to himself, maybe that was a mistake.
I wonder. Mari, thank you so much. Appreciate it.